Hello, my name's Charles Varner, and this is my WC-54 Dodge 3/4 ton ambulance. This ambulance superseded the half-ton ambulance. The difference was the 3/4 ton, the Army wanted a little more heavy-duty, durable vehicle, so the 3/4 tons have bigger tires, and of course they're all four-wheel drive. The 3/4 ton had a flatter hood and a flat grille as opposed to the half-ton. There's also a slight difference on the box in the back, but very little. One of the characteristics of the early model 3/4 ton ambulances was this gas filler cap. You'll notice it's just flush up against the side of the body. In 1944 they changed the design and put this gas cap inset to where you could tip a jerry can up and fill the tank. The problem was with this filler you can only get so much gas out of it. So you'll notice a later model ambulance, one of the immediate things is the inset gas filler cap. These vehicles were manufactured in large numbers. About 350,000 were made in World War II. They were all made by Dodge Motor Company. They feature a flathead inline 6 engine. They were made in Detroit. This model does not have a winch, and no ambulances were manufactured with a winch at the factory. These were used, of course, by the Medical Corps, and you can see the use of the caduceus symbol here, which is the universal symbol for the Medical Corps. It's the only World War II vehicle that actually has the word United States Army stenciled on the side, and this actually came from the factory this way. And in fact, this is not even a stencil. This was actually painted directly onto the body. This symbol here, of course, is the international symbol for the Red Cross. This is a copyrighted symbol, and I have received written permission from the Red Cross to use their copyrighted trademark. They also allow the United States Army and any armies of the world to use their copyrighted trademark for free. And it does, of course, stand for the universal symbol for mercy. And to this day, you will still see this symbol being used on military vehicles throughout the world. Also, you may not be able to see it, but you can probably see the edge of it. A large Red Cross was painted on the roof of the vehicle, as well as the word ambulance on the front with two smaller Red Crosses. This was, of course, for aerial recognition, so that the ambulance wouldn't be mistakenly shot up either by our own forces or by enemy forces as a vehicle of mercy. Of course, no guns or weapons or any kind of armament was carried on these vehicles. Again, they were four-wheel drive. Their top speed was somewhere in the range of 35 to 40 miles an hour. Most of the time they went much slower due to road conditions and probably due to the fact that the four-wheel drive was engaged most of the time. Another factory original characteristic of the ambulance, of course, is the spotlight, and this is functioning. All ambulances were 6 volt, but they used the spotlight, of course, on the battlefield to locate wounded in low light situations. It also has the usual military vehicle equipment, the blackout lights, the running lights, the brush guards, the Pioneer toolkits, the tow hooks. One interesting thing about the ambulance, which you really can't see, but I'll describe it, is the rear springs are covered and packed in grease. It's the only World War II vehicle that has that, and of course that was somewhat to cushion the people that were riding in the back. Normally you would carry 4 wounded on stretchers that actually hung in the back from straps from the ceiling. That was the normal contingent of 4 wounded and perhaps a medic riding in the back as well. You had a driver and then a passenger. I'll show you this later, but to give you an idea, this was also the only military vehicle that, other than the command car, that had leather seats. And these were standard, and again, that was for the comfort of the driver. Another thing the ambulance had that no other military vehicle had in World War II was a heater. And again, this was, these sometimes had 2 heaters. There was a heater in the front, a tropic air heater to keep the passenger and the driver, the passenger was probably a relief driver, so that the drivers could could drive longer hours in more comfort. And of course, some of them had the option of a rear heater as well to keep the patients in the back warmer. There's another interesting thing on this, and you may look at it later. This still got the tie-down hooks. These were supposed to be removed. These were shipped on rail cars to the debarkation point for transport overseas. And for some reason, these straps were never removed. But you can find photographs from World War II showing various military vehicles strapped down to the rail cars. I restored this vehicle myself. It's quite involved restoration. It requires lots of graphics and painting, a lot of unique parts that are unique to the ambulance, so they're kind of hard to find. I did want to mention one other thing. This is the invasion star, which was used in every invasion and they varied slightly from landing beach to landing beach. This was again to identify this as an Allied vehicle, because a lot of times the enemy would capture our vehicles, and in a subsequent invasion, they didn't know what the right star was with the number of breaks in the circle or whatever. So this was a further form of identification. There's also a star on the hood, which was for aircraft recognition, and the white star meaning an Allied vehicle. Also, you notice this, all military vehicles have USA, and then a serial number, and then a -S, and the S means there's suppression equipment in it for use with the radio, although radios were virtually never used with the ambulance. I mainly use it for parades, again honoring the veterans, especially of World War II. We use it in reenactments of battle scenarios from World War II as well. This would normally carry a crew of 2. You'd have the driver and then the passenger, who would often be perhaps a medic or corpsman, who would accompany the ambulance to the battlefield. So I think that's about it. Oh. Did I forget anything?
I don't think so.
Did I say it was a WC-54?
Yes.
That's right.
All right, you
Yeah.
pick up anytime.
Okay, we're now at the rear door. Notice the markings. All military vehicles had unit markings on the bumpers and bumperettes. That was to tell which unit they were with. This was 3rd Army, which was General Patton's Army, 593rd Medical Battalion, and this designated which number vehicle it was in the motor pool. This is A number 17. All ambulances have this special fold-up rear step, which made it easier for the wounded to get in and out. And notice how the step's also painted to match the Red Cross. And this shows the rear of the ambulance with a full contingent of equipment here. As you can see, the litters are hung from the ceilings with straps. So you have 2 litters that are hung up, and then 2 litters sit on the floor. I have various medical equipment, medical bags, first aid kits, things like that, which would have been typically found in an ambulance. Also, these are personal effect bags. Once the wounded were collected and their wounds treated, then their wallets, watches, dog tags, whatever would be, cigarettes would be put into these bags and saved for transfer back to the hospital. So they could carry more wounded if they weren't on litters. You could literally fill as many men in the back of this as you could fit if they were walking wounded, in which case these straps would be simply loosened, the litters folded up, and you could, I think in a severe situation, maybe put 8 or 10 walking wounded in the back. I've even heard stories where the ambulance was full. A guy I talked to in Korea, he actually hung on the front fender, laid on the front fender, and was taken back to the aid station. So tremendously dependable and rugged vehicles that Dodge built. Also has the pintle hook. Oftentimes they would carry a supply trailer with them with extra litters and plasma and things like that. But the basic purpose of the ambulance was to transport the wounded from the battlefield frontline situation back to the field hospital where they'd be treated more aggressively for their wounds after the corpsman or medic saw them, and then they would be taken to the rear to a bigger, more fully equipped hospital. But these would often run round the clock, 24 hours a day when casualties were heavy, transporting wounded. After the war, they were also used to help transfer orphans and displaced people in World War II. Some units of these were also made into radio trucks and used by the Signal Corps, but most of them were used as ambulances. They didn't have a siren either, but they would put a white flag with a red cross on the front, which was kind of a silent siren. So whenever the ambulance was transporting wounded, if the white flag with the red cross on it was flying off the front bumper, that meant they had the superiority on the road and everyone else should yield for them. So that's it, I think.